Imagine waking up from a strange dream. Perhaps you were running through a field or arguing with someone you haven't seen in years. In that moment, everything felt so real. But as soon as you open your eyes, the meaning begins to fade. Why do we dream of such random things? What is all of this trying to tell us? Carl Jung believed that our dreams aren't mere nonsense. They are messages coming from a part of our mind that we often ignore, the unconscious. It's curious, isn't it? We live our lives relying so much on what we can see and touch, but there's an invisible layer of ourselves that is constantly trying to communicate. Think of the unconscious as a deep ocean. The surface, what we see day to day, is just a fraction of its true depth. Below in the darker waters lie our emotions, fears, and repressed desires, ready to emerge in the form of symbols. And that's what makes the language of the unconscious so fascinating. It doesn't speak in words but in images. A simple apple in a dream can represent temptation, knowledge, or something entirely different, depending on who is dreaming. Isn't it intriguing how the same symbol can mean such different things? It all depends on how you, specifically, perceive it. So, what are your dreams trying to tell you? And more importantly, are we really listening? Jung believed that if we pay attention, these symbolic messages can guide us in surprising ways. After all, who better to advise us than ourselves? Or at least that part of us that understands what we're truly feeling, even when we can't put it into words. Carl Jung spent his life exploring what most of us prefer to avoid, the mind itself, and not the part we use to make everyday decisions. He was interested in something much deeper, something we don't control, the unconscious. But what led Jung to embark on this journey? Curiously, it all began with a dream. Despite being one of the greatest thinkers of his time, Jung resisted the idea of making his ideas more accessible to the general public for a long time. He believed that his theories about the unconscious and symbols were too complex, perhaps even incomprehensible, for those who weren't experts. That was until one night he dreamt he wasn't speaking to his fellow scholars, but to ordinary people. People like you and me. This shift in perspective was a turning point. Jung realized that the messages of the unconscious are not exclusive to academics or specialists. They belong to all of us. Every dream, every symbol that appears in our minds is an opportunity to learn something important about ourselves. But, contrary to what many believe, the unconscious isn't here to confuse or deceive us. It's like a silent old friend trying to help us find balance, even when we don't understand its signs. Now think for a moment. How many times have you ignored a feeling, an intuition, or even a strange dream? Jung warns us, the more we neglect what comes from our unconscious, the more unbalanced we become. Because while we're busy trying to keep everything under control, there's a part of us, one we cannot see, that continues to shape our choices, our fears, and our desires. The journey to the unconscious that Jung proposed is not easy. It requires confronting parts of ourselves that we'd rather keep hidden. But it's also a voyage of self-discovery, one that can completely transform how we see the world and ourselves. By understanding what goes on deep within our minds, we're better equipped to handle life's complexities, and perhaps we may even find greater meaning in our dreams and in our daily choices. The question is, are you willing to embark on this journey with Jung? Think of a dream you had recently. It might have been something simple, like missing a bus or being in an unfamiliar house. As strange as these scenarios may seem, they are far from random. For Jung, these images, these symbols, are the key to understanding what is happening in the depths of your unconscious. But what exactly are symbols? Imagine you're trying to communicate with someone who speaks a completely different language. You can't use words, so what do? You use gestures, images, signs. The unconscious does the same thing with us. It doesn't use direct phrases, but rather symbols, visual representations that carry deep meanings. A horse in your dream may just be a horse, but it could also represent freedom, strength, or even a wild aspect of yourself that you're not facing. It's as if the unconscious is constantly trying to tell you something important, but in a way that you need to decipher. Now, you might be wondering, why can't the unconscious be more direct? Why doesn't it just say what it means? The answer lies in the complexity of the human mind. Our conscious mind, the rational part that keeps us focused on work, daily responsibilities, isn't always ready to deal with deeper truths. So, the unconscious sends these messages in symbolic forms, almost like puzzles that we can only solve when we're ready to face what they reveal. Let's take a simple example. Say you dream of a bridge. For one person, that bridge might represent an important transition in life, a passage from one phase to another. For someone else, it might signify fear of change, of leaving something behind. The real meaning isn't in the bridge itself, but in what it represents to you. Symbols speak to an emotional and personal truth that only you can truly interpret. And here's the beauty of dreams. They aren't just random memories of your day or disconnected fragments of the mind. They are conversations, sometimes serious, sometimes mysterious, between you and yourself. When we pay attention to these images, we begin to see patterns, and these patterns help us understand what's really going on inside, beneath the surface of our lives. So, the next time you wake up intrigued by a dream, maybe it's time to stop and reflect. What is your unconscious trying to show you? There might be an important message there, waiting to be heard. Now, let's dive into something even more fascinating: archetypes. But what are they? In simple terms, think of archetypes as characters we already know, ones that have been part of humanity's story since the beginning. Jung believed that, beyond our individual unconscious, formed by our personal experiences, there is also a collective unconscious. And it is at this deeper level that we find these universal characters, the archetypes. Have you ever noticed how certain stories repeat, generation after generation? The hero who faces impossible challenges, the wise figure offering advice, the dark villain who must be defeated. These figures aren't just in fairy tales or superhero movies. They exist within all of us. They are patterns of behavior, emotions, and experiences that we share, regardless of where or when we were born. And why does this matter? Because these archetypes shape how we respond to life's situations. Take the example of the hero. In nearly every culture, the hero is the one who faces the unknown, overcomes obstacles, and ultimately returns transformed. This archetype reflects our own personal journey, our challenges, and the growth that comes from them. When you face a major problem, even if you don't realize it, you are living the hero archetype, tapping into strengths you might not have known you had. But not all archetypes are positive. There is also the shadow, which represents the parts of ourselves we'd rather not face. Those personality traits we hide, perhaps out of shame or fear. The shadow appears in our dreams as something that frightens us, but according to Jung, it should not be ignored. In fact, recognizing and accepting our shadow is essential for our growth. As he put it, what we do not face within ourselves, we encounter as fate. Archetypes are also connected to another powerful idea: the collective unconscious. Imagine that, just as we inherit physical traits from our ancestors, we also inherit certain psychological patterns and memories. This doesn't mean you'll remember exactly what happened to your ancestors, but certain behaviors and emotions, like fear, love, courage, are imprinted in all of us. It's as if the collective unconscious is the DNA of our psyche, carrying the shared experiences of humanity. Think about that for a moment. There's a part of you that shares something with every person on the planet, from all times. No matter where you are, these archetypes are present, working in the depths of your mind. They are part of what makes us human, connecting you to something greater, something beyond your individual life experience. And that makes us wonder, how aware are we of these archetypes at work? How many times have the hero, the shadow, or any other symbolic figure influenced your choices without you realizing it? It's this kind of question that Jung invites us to ask, and one that can transform how we see our own journey. Now we arrive at the heart of Jung's philosophy, the process of individuation. At its core, individuation is the journey of becoming who we truly are. It sounds simple, but think about it for a moment. How many times in life have you felt yourself molding to the expectations of others? Maybe, without even realizing it, you've repressed important parts of yourself just to be accepted, to be normal. And that's precisely where individuation comes in. The quest to bring together all parts of ourselves, the ones we know and the ones we'd rather not face, into a balanced whole. This process is a bit like putting together a puzzle. Imagine starting with a box of scattered pieces. Some are easy to fit, your beliefs, your values, the image you have of yourself. But then there are those harder pieces, your fears, your insecurities, your repressed impulses. Individuation is about taking all of these pieces, even the ones you'd rather avoid, and figuring out how they fit into the entirety of who you are. A crucial step in this process is confronting the shadow. As I mentioned earlier, the shadow encompasses all aspects of ourselves that we reject or ignore, the parts we prefer to keep hidden. But here's the catch. The more we avoid these parts, the more powerful they become. Jung believed that the only way to become whole is to accept and integrate our shadow. This doesn't mean acting on negative impulses, but rather recognizing that they exist and that they are a part of who you are. This brings us to the anima and animus, concepts Jung used to describe the opposite gender within us. For men, the anima represents the feminine side. For women, the animus is the masculine side. Integrating these opposite aspects is one of the most important steps in individuation. It's as if within each of us there's a balance to be achieved, a harmony between opposing forces. When we ignore these parts, we become incomplete, trapped in rigid roles. But when we manage to integrate these energies, we become more flexible, more capable of navigating life's complexities with authenticity. But individuation isn't easy, nor is it quick. Jung noted that it's a slow, sometimes painful path that can last a lifetime. It's not about following rules or fitting into patterns, but about freeing yourself from external expectations and diving deeply into who you really are. Imagine what it would be like to break free from those restraints, to feel completely free to be yourself. Individuation is exactly that, an ongoing journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance. And interestingly, when we begin to become whole, something remarkable happens. We influence those around us. It's like a stone thrown into a lake, creating ripples. When someone is at peace with themselves, in harmony with their inner parts, it has a contagious effect. Your presence begins to inspire those around you, not because you're telling them what to do, but Now, imagine standing in front of a painting that moves you. Maybe it's something abstract, with shapes and colors that you can't quite explain why they're so impactful. Or perhaps it's an ancient sculpture from a culture you've never encountered. Yet somehow it stirs something inside you. Have you ever wondered why? Jung would say that, just like in dreams, art is a portal to the unconscious. Artists, in a way, are translators of what we often cannot express. When we look at a piece of art and feel touched, what's happening is a direct communication between our unconscious mind and the symbolism present in that artistic creation. And just like in dreams, these symbols speak a language that transcends words. Think about symbols that constantly appear in art: circles, animals, geometric shapes. The circle, for example, appears in different cultures and historical moments. It could be a Tibetan mandala, a stained glass window in a cathedral, or even the simple wheel of a bicycle. For Jung, the circle represents something universal: the quest for wholeness, the symbol of the self, the center of our being. When we see a circle, in a way, we are reminded of our deep need for balance and completeness. And what about animals? From the earliest cave paintings to modern representations, animals frequently appear. To Jung, animals symbolize our instincts, the primal part of us that still lives within. When we see a painting of a wolf or an eagle, for example, we're not just looking at an animal. We are in touch with our own instinctual nature, with our strengths and vulnerabilities, with what connects us to our essence. But this symbolism isn't only found in museums or galleries. It's everywhere in our daily lives, often in ways we don't notice. Think about the logos of the brands we use, the statues in city squares, the tattoos that so many people choose to ink on their bodies. All of these carry symbols that speak directly to our unconscious. When you choose an image to represent something important in your life, you're choosing a symbol that in some way translates what you feel, but perhaps can't put into words. This is where art and everyday life intersect. We are surrounded by symbols every day, helping us better understand ourselves. And the more we stop to observe these symbols, whether in a famous painting, a book, or even the design on a t-shirt, the more we realize how they are connecting us to deeper layers of our psyche. The question is, are we paying attention? Are we truly seeing these symbols, or are we merely passing by them, distracted by the demands of modern life? Jung believed that if we start to notice the symbols around us, we can open a new door of understanding, both of the world and of ourselves. And who knows, through this symbolic connection, we might find a bit more meaning in the things we do and the choices we make every day. After all that we've explored, it's clear that the human mind is a vast and mysterious terrain. Jung showed us that what happens in the unconscious is not just background noise. These are signals, messages, symbols. It's as if there's an entire world within us, waiting to be explored. But here's the question. How often do we truly stop to listen? How often do we look inward, instead of merely reacting to what's outside? This journey inward can seem daunting. After all, who knows what we might find? But Jung reminds us that the real challenge doesn't lie in the external world. It's in confronting what we've hidden within. It's easy to get distracted by daily life, our routines, and responsibilities. But the unconscious never stops speaking. It continues to send us symbols, dreams, emotions, all with the aim of helping us understand who we really are. Which brings us to the final question. What does it truly mean to know yourself? It's not just about understanding your likes and dislikes. It's about uncovering your hidden parts, those you might have ignored or repressed. Facing your shadow, integrating your archetypes, interpreting the symbols your mind creates. It's not an easy process, but it's liberating. Because in the end, what Jung offers us is a chance to be whole. To stop running from ourselves and finally embrace who we are with all our complexities and contradictions. The exploration of the inner self, according to Jung, is not just a choice, it's a necessity. If we ignore the messages from our unconscious, we are only living halfway, disconnected from essential parts of ourselves. But if we allow ourselves this journey, we might find something surprising, a more authentic, braver, and, above all, more complete version of who we are. So, what have your dreams, symbols, and emotions been trying to tell you? Maybe it's time to truly listen. After all, the deepest adventure you can experience isn't outside, it's within you. So, did you manage to realize how symbols and dreams can help you better understand who you are? If this video made you reflect, leave a comment down below about a dream that has impacted you or a symbol you can't seem to get out of your mind. I want to hear your story. And if you're ready to keep exploring the mind and the unconscious, make sure to subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and share it with anyone you think might be interested. Remember, this journey of self-discovery can start right now. Are you coming with me? Let's go together.